Hi, everyone. Welcome to another exciting edition of Words, Images, and Worlds. Delighted on this episode to be talking a second time with editor, creator Bob Greenberger, and educator. I will add educator as well.
Evening, Jason. How are you?
I'm pretty good. I'm pretty good. We are getting back into the school year here, and I understand the same for you, but you also have a big project that's underway that I know we're talking
Right.
about as well.
Yeah, I wish the timing were a little different so it didn't end as school was beginning, but that's just the way the calendar worked out with Crazy Eight Press. So this is for the fourth edition of Thrilling Adventure Yarns, which
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
scheduled to come out in March of 2025. We are currently running the Kickstarter campaign, which ends on Friday the 30th at noon. So we've got just over 7+ days to go as we're recording this.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I'm at 68% funded. So I'm on track to get the money I need for the bare minimum.
Yeah.
But one of the things that makes the book really work as a tribute to the pulps is not just the cover and the stories, but I'd like to have the interior illustrations as well. And that those half illustrations and then full illustrations are two of my stretch goals. And I
Nice.
really, really want the illustrations because I tap a lot of my comic book artist buddies to step
Uh-huh.
in and help me out, and I get some gorgeous work.
Yeah, yeah. And you want that with the pulps. I have just been on a big kind of refresh of my appreciation of pulp storytelling, and it's great to have a lovely image to go with that too.
Yeah, a lot of the artists rise to the occasion, and some are doing it even though I'm paying way below their regular rates.
Yeah, yeah.
So they're doing me a favor. Plus, they're having some fun, and it's only one picture. So, it's not too much of an investment on their part.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, and since the last book, I've now been an adjunct professor at the Maryland Institute College of Art, where I'm teaching a making graphic novels course. And I now have a small number of graduates who I think have a style that would be good for the book. And I, as their teacher, would love to be able to hire them.
Oh yeah, what a great way to get back and connect with your students too,
Right.
and give them a gig. Any particular sort of inspirations, characters, or story types that you're looking to feature that way?
Well, the the cover feature is clearly a science fiction story because we haven't done science fiction on the cover really.
Hmm.
Um, but we have honed down the genres in this particular volume based on reader feedback for the first three. So we're going to be heavy on sword and sorcery, science fiction, crime, and supernatural.
Nice, nice. Yeah. Now I'll tuck a question here since we're talking pulps. What do you feel like is especially invigorating or energizing about that particular type of storytelling or that tradition?
It's the rich imagination that the great pulp authors of the 20s, 30s, and 40s brought to their work, even
Hmm.
though they were being paid as low as half a cent a word. They were pounding this stuff out, and we were getting whatever their fevered imaginations can come up with. And you look at someone like Robert E. Howard, who can go from his barbarian to Atlantis with Kull, and even to the Puritan with Solomon Kane and
Hmm.
other characters. And he's built out worlds for all of them, and they're all wonderfully imaginative. You look at Edgar Rice Burroughs, who debuted Tarzan in the pulps, and then John Carter, and it's a great opportunity to really try things out because if it works great, you can do more with it, and if it doesn't, you learn and move on. And these guys barely had time to look back. The story is Walter Gibson, who wrote the majority of the Shadow novels as Maxwell Grant, had three typewriters as an apartment. And as
Hmm.
he burned out on writing one story as fast as humanly possible, would get a glass of water and move on to the next typewriter and back to the next story until it was time to the third typewriter and then back to the first. So he was having different stories all at a time because not only was he writing The Shadow, which at its peak was coming out twice a month, but he
Hmm.
was writing other works as well.
Yeah, yeah. So clearly there was a fire there that he was stoking as well.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these guys wrote to make a living, but a lot of them had so many ideas,
Yeah.
which is great. I mean, and a lot of people made very nice livings that way.
Yeah. But I love the breadth of what you were just talking about, everything from Tarzan to John Carter, Mars, Call, Solomon Kane. Because like comics, pulps are not one particular thing. It's not all Dick Tracy or The Shadow or whatever it happens to be. There's a
Right.
lot to explore.
Which is why Thrilling Adventure Yarns is designed to be closer to all story, where Tarzan debuted because it's all genres. I didn't want to limit myself to westerns or war or aviators,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I think today's readers have an appetite for that kind of variety. And because
Yeah.
I only do this once a year or two, um, I try and give something to everybody.
Yeah. And I imagine as somebody that enjoys the genre or genres, it must be really nice to be able to tap into that, especially at the end of a long school day or in those moments in between when we're not working
Sure.
with students.
Yeah, I mean, in fact, today at our professional development to prepare for the new school year, we were talking about teacher self-care. Yesterday, we talked about our students' mental health issues, but we talked about teacher stress. How do we de-stress ourselves? And for me, it's a cup of coffee and a book.
Same. Yeah.
Lose myself in someone else's world.
hmm Yeah, always. That's my end of the day ritual. That's the end of the day activity. Maybe not the coffee at the end of the day, but definitely a good book to just sort of step away from everything and get to immerse myself in a fantasy world, which just sounds like you are actively providing.
That's what I'm trying for, sure.
Yeah, yeah,
And I bring my friends with me.
yeah. No, always, always. Uh, so speaking of sort of the creative energy, also curious about the art and comics side. What really energizes you and connects you that way?
In the comic books that I used to work on.
In the comics you used to work on, but also thinking about the visuals that you're adding to the book.
Oh, okay. Um, Roy Crankle and Virgil Finlay, and there's a ton of really talented people who learned how to draw and get the most out of the story visually with their
hmm
line work, knowing it was being reproduced on cheap pulp paper. And we got some gorgeous work that way. And I try and instill that in the artists I'm hiring for these stories. Like, go and look at what they did and bring me that kind of lush line work, or bring me that kind of imaginative, um, find the beat in the story that you think will best illustrate, a key moment.
hmm
And again, because I'm working with a lot of professionals who've done tons of stories in a variety of styles, um, they go for it. Usually, when I line up my artists, I say, "What genre do you want?" and I mix and match that way.
Nice.
Um, One of my authors this time around, as he delivered his story, said, "I would really like so and so to illustrate my story." And it's like, well, if we get to the stretch goals, I'll have that conversation.
Yep. Yeah. Love that. Yeah. So you're also creating this space for authors to join in and be part of the project as well. That's got to be rewarding.
It is, because these are people whose work I enjoy, and I would
hmm
like to work with them and bring challenge them to come up with something in that flavor of the old pulp magazines.
Yeah.
I had the first three volumes. You will see a tremendous amount of repetition in terms of a lot of the Crazy Eight authors have been part of all three books, and some of the outside writers we brought in have been part of at least two books, some all three. So for the fourth book, I wanted to freshen all of that up. So not every Crazy Eight author wanted to be a part of the fourth book, which was there based on schedule and other issues. They decided to come back or not. And once I knew how many of them were available, I then gave myself a long list of creators I wanted to bring to the book. And I always start with a very long list with a lot of big names most of whom I figured I wasn't going to get. But on
hmm
the off chance they had a spare week, or really liked what I've done in the first three books, maybe I could get them. And bit by bit, as I get the nose, I move on down the list. And I've come up with I think, a really good, strong lineup of newcomers to this book. That it's including um, comics and prose writers
Hmm.
such as Dan Abnett and Charles Ardai from Hard Case Crime,
Hmm.
the series that he created and sold to Titan Books and continues to oversee and write for, as well as Elliot S. Nagin, of course,
Hmm.
who
Hmm.
anyone who likes his Superman certainly should know and love his novel Miracle Monday from the 70s. He hasn't done a lot of prose since then, but all of it's been very good, and he did a nice story for me here. And also, I've got Jeff Marriott, who was an editor at Wildstorm and certainly an experienced comics writer, as well as tons of pulp related type material.
Hmm.
And then for me, a real nice coup for the comics to prose side is Christopher Priest,
Oh, nice. Yeah,
because
yeah.
he always has a unique take on his comic book storytelling. And here in his detective story, the police procedural more likely, um, he once again has a real snap for the character and dialogue. And, you know, maybe not as quirky as visual storytelling, like his Black Panther or Quantum and Woody, but it's
Hmm.
certainly an entertaining read. In addition to that, I've got people who are well versed in pulp storytelling, like Bobby Nash and Win Scott Eckert,
Hmm.
both
Hmm.
of whom have done a ton of licensed work with pulp characters such as Tarzan. Then I've got William F. Wu, who is an accomplished science fiction writer. He's a name comic book fans might recognize for his voluminous letters to Shang-Chi, Master of Kung Fu in the 70s and 80s.
Nice, nice.
Um, and then finally, I've got Liz Braswell. Now, Liz is an old friend, and she is mostly known as a young adult writer for her work with the Disney princesses for Disney Press. But she cut her teeth on science fiction and Star Trek and understands pulp very well. And it was a chance for her to stretch, try
Hmm.
something different.
Hmm.
So I haven't read her story yet. It's not in, but I'm really looking forward to seeing what she does for this because she was one of the first people I asked.
Nice, nice. Now that process of asking people and sort of curating, are there particular beats that you're looking for or particular parts of the sort of the elevator pitch that you give to folks as you're inviting them to the project?
Some are people I've invited previously who had said no because their schedules couldn't accommodate it. So they were
Mhm.
familiar with it. Others were like, tell me more. And I would send them PDFs of the first three books so they could see for themselves. Um, Others were recommended to me by people who said no.
Yeah.
So when I'm looking, it's not so much beats, but it's a variety of voices and experiences. And I'm going to be crass here and say commercially, I want a variety of names that are going to be recognizable to different circles of readership.
Hmm. Hmm.
So that,
Absolutely.
you know, Liz may get me a couple of readers I wouldn't get otherwise. William Wu, with his science fiction following, may get some stuff. And certainly I'm tapping the comic market with people like Priest and Magan and Abnett. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
making no bones about it.
And great to have all of those folks collaborating in the same text as well and bringing different perspectives, different viewpoints to the world of pulp.
Right. Many of them have read some pulp related material, usually The Shadow or Tarzan or Conan. Others are steeped in it and read, black detective stories or
Mhm.
spicy Western tales. Some really knew their pulps very well.
Nice, nice. So if I'm a listener out there, what are some things that I might expect from the book?
Well, I've mentioned the genres.
Hmm.
Um, the book is designed to look like an old pulp magazine. We do the weathered cover look, but we have the two column per page design with typefaces and title treatments that resemble what had been done for pulp magazines. Aaron Rosenberg, who is one of my Crazy Eight Press colleagues, has done the book design for the previous three books and has really come, has studied other pulps stuff I've sent him, said, look at this, I really like how they do this.
Hmm.
And he's
Hmm.
brought that look and feel. So that's been nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Beyond that, hopefully they'll get really good stories and nice illustrations and feel like they read a good pulp book.
Yeah. Yeah. Is pulp on the reading list for any of the classes that you're teaching?
Um, in my intro to lit, I touch on some Bradbury in my short story unit,
Love it. You have to.
who
Yeah.
of course cut his teeth in the pulps.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, Not a lot that way, but I do have copies of the first three books in my classroom library. So for independent reading, if they go, I don't know what to read, it's in here, try one of these.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So when you were talking about um going from typewriter to typewriter, I was thinking about the Bradbury story, sort of feeding a typewriter dimes to write Fahrenheit
Uh,
451. I mean, the dedication of
yeah.
authors is just incredible.
A lot of these guys had real hard luck stories before they got their first break.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, it took the fans who became professionals, who met these budding writers at the conventions or through the letters that they exchanged or the letter columns of the pulp magazines themselves. Fandom really was a very organic thing back in the day when once Hugo Gernsback started printing the letters with addresses, people sent each other's letters or postcards and all of a sudden they started communicating, which
Yeah.
is how first fandom formed and ran the first World Science Fiction Convention of 1939.
That's awesome.
So, you know, it's been around a while. Same, it's old as Batman.
Building community. Yeah.
Exactly.
And now we have these amazing online communities like Kickstarter, like these spaces where people can go and share work and connect with each other as well.
Right. I mean, if I went to a traditional publisher and I said I want to do, this kind of concept, they would probably say, "Well, if you can get me George R. R. Martin and Neil Gaiman and this guy
Hmm.
and that guy," and it was like, "Yeah, unless you're giving me a boatload of money to pay for it all, I can't give you that.
Right, right.
But I can give you really good stuff by these other people." And they go, "Well, I can't sell that,
Yeah.
but I can with crowdfunding."
Hmm. Hmm.
And I have about 400 backers for each of the first three books, plus what I sell at conventions, plus what's available via Amazon. So I know it's circulating. I
Hmm.
may not do the kind of numbers a traditional publisher is looking for, but it's out there.
Yeah.
And the books are on Kindle Unlimited, and I get a small royalty check from them every month, showing me the thousands of pages that have been read,
Yeah.
which means people are finding it, and that's speaks well for the book.
Yeah. Yeah. And a great way to keep pulp storytelling alive as well.
I didn't realize the large community that's out there for people who are doing their own version of the pulps. They create their own characters, or in some cases have licensed moribund um, characters like Captain Future, which was Edmund Hamilton's character, and are doing their own self-publishing, or there's small houses that are doing this stuff. So there's always shows like PulpCon, which just ran in Pittsburgh a couple of weeks back.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
there really is still a lively community of people interested in the material, which is great. I wish more of the traditional publishers would, package and recollect some of this classic stuff. It seems to go in waves.
Hmm.
In my case, I discovered the pulps through the collections of paperbacks. Bantam was doing the Shadow and Doc Savage, and then Lancer came out with the Conan books. I
Hmm.
still remember being like 12 years old at a summer camp reading the first Conan book.
Yeah.
So, that was eye opening, that stuff.
Yeah. It's tapping into something brand new.
Totally.
Yeah. Well, if I'm a listener and I want to find out more about the book, if I want to see the previous books and support the new one, where might be some places I can do that?
Well, the current campaign is a Kickstarter, so it's Thrilling Adventure Yarns 2025, and hard to miss. The other books are available through Amazon,
Mhm.
or if you go to my website, www.bobgreenberger.com or crazy8press.com. They're all listed there, and you can find buy links if you like what you've read about them. Not hard.
Great, great, great. Have we missed anything that you want to make sure to mention before we close out?
Well, today is August 20th, and there are 7.5 days to go. So, if you're at all interested, we've got till Friday the 30th at noon.
Hmm.
So don't delay. Make me a happy man. Make me shatter the goal and move on to the stretch goal so I can have the illustrations. Beyond that, no, I think we've covered, all the basics. So thank you for asking, Jason.
Of course, of course. And what lucky students you have that you'll be meeting in the near future as well that get to work with you.
Yeah, a lot of teachers get a little jaded about it, and to me, it's like I really look forward to the beginning of the school years. I have freshmen and sophomores. So
Mhm.
freshmen, the two classes are like it's all new, and we get to discover things together and design things together and create a class culture together, and
Yeah,
and that can be very energizing and very rewarding if it works.
absolutely. That's the best way to go about it. Love that. Yeah. Well, many, many thanks, and glad to have you back anytime.
It's appreciated. I love it. And thank you for anyone who's watching for your support.